Hello, welcome to today's episode of Juicing the Numbers, your statistics and sports podcast. I am one of your hosts, Joshua Tracy.
And I am the other Corwin Heller.
And welcome to the show this week. Baseball is raring and going and moving. We have already had for the second in the last three seasons, a Yankee retire before the first month of the season concludes, as Jay Bruce this morning, Sunday morning, has apparently informed Aaron Boone and others that he plans on retiring after today's game. So the Jay Bruce run in New York after a couple of stints with the Mets and now this stint with the Yankees is officially done. Yeah, I mean it's been a rocky ride here with the Yanks in the early goings. It's not been great. I'll get into that a little bit, I guess. But all in all, a 14-year-long career for Jay Bruce is it's tough to hang around for that long, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there has been so much talk this season about, what he's failed to do with the Yankees, his hot start at spring training, his, filling in for Luke Voit while he's injured and what he'd be able to do, what he should be able to do, especially with the Yankees. Everyone expects Yankees players and guys playing for the Yankees to perform at the highest possible level possible, completely fulfill their expectations, their potential. And that's just not always the case, especially when you have played so many years in MLB. And, I saw your tweet earlier about giving it his all, going out in his own terms, how rare that is for guys. I saw Max was talking to you about it on Twitter, Max Greenfield, and very much agree that, that's a high level take, taking a step back from the situation, taking a step back from your Yankees fandom. And he had a hell of a career, all over the map. And when you sit back and look at it, in 2 years, when people forget, oh, remember when he played like 15 games with the Yankees, 12 games with the Yankees, and you look at the entire career as a whole, you'll be, hey, that was pretty good. You could say, I had a good career. I'm happy with how my career turned out and not have any reservations.
Yeah, I mean, and you hear a lot from players in Bruce's type of position, because we literally heard this from the last Yankee to kind of do this exact same thing, which was Troy Tulowitzki, who said, like, I just want my kid to have a memory of me playing in the bigs. And that be it. Because, you think about it, like, you break into the league when you're like 22 or some shit like that. Chances are you're not having a kid. Let's say you have a kid when you're like, I don't know, still pretty young. Let's say 26. It's gonna take a few years for that kid to be old enough to really like have any memories in general, let alone specific memories of your career. And so you hear from these dudes, not infrequently. Jay Bruce, who's only 34, which is, elder for baseball, but young for a guy.
Right.
Like Jay Bruce is only 8 years older than me, which, wow, he looks a lot more than 8 years older than me. That's fucking weird as shit. That's actually really weird now that I said it out loud. But but that's
Could you
not
imagine retiring from your job in 8 years?
no. Oh my god, it'd be
Ooh,
great though.
right?
Whew.
Like we both have well, Josh used to have a job he hates. I currently have a job that I don't like. I could put up with that job for 8 years. That's a long time if it meant retiring for the rest of my life.
Oh yeah. Um, Man, sorry that I said it and I can't get it out of my head. It's so fucking weird. But anyway, Jay Bruce, who spent 9 seasons with Cincinnati, 3 kind of seasons with the Mets. He spent 2 years with the Phillies. He spent a half a season with Cleveland. He spent part of a season with New York, and he spent half a season with the Mariners. Man, just bouncing around a bunch. God, this guy got traded so much, which is kind of a good thing because it meant people wanted him. But yeah, it first off, if you're a Yankees fan, there's no reason to give this dude shit. Okay. And it bothers me so much. He had a decent enough spring training. We did not have a starting first baseman because Luke Voigt was hurt. Brian Cashman took a chance on a guy, which is like what his job is. And Jay Bruce showed up enough in spring training to make you feel like it was worth it. And if you're a Yankees fan, for one thing, it's just a guy trying to do his job. And for another thing, why aren't you a little bit happy instead of giving him shit? I mean, if you were really that upset with how he was playing, he just took himself out of the situation instead of forcing the Yankees to play him or cut him over the course of an entire season.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, here's a guy who wanted to give it his best shot before he probably ended up hanging up the cleats at some point in the next couple of years anyway, and wasn't happy with his own results. You know, that's fucking life, man.
Right. Like, how can you blame a guy for realizing, hey, I'm not playing up to my own expectations, let alone the expectations of the New York Yankees? I'm going to step aside, let someone else come up, let another guy take place. Hey, it's not working out for me. I did my time. I had my career. I'm done. I'm happy. I'm content. No need to hold on to this longer than I need to, and then build those regrets because you held on too long and didn't let go to, spend time with your family, start other, ventures, this, that, 10 other things.
Mm-hmm.
Garrett Cole ruined his perfect game with a hit by pitch on the back toe. Hate to see it.
Hey, don't you hate when perfect games get broken up in the second? Anyway, Jay Bruce officially retires with 1,650 games played. He got 1,455 hits in his career, 312 doubles, 32 triples, which is actually kind of awesome. 319 home runs, 951 RBIs, just short of 1,000 there. 65 stolen bases, his last one coming in 2019 when he started the season with the Mariners. 40 walks, 40 caught stealing, 600 walks, and 1,500 strikeouts. His career slash line officially in the books: 244, 314, 476. That is good for a 781 OPS for his career and a 108 OPS plus, which, league average hitter or better most of the given time. His best year being, his best individual season being his 2012 year with the Cincinnati Reds. He had an OPS plus of 121 in that season with a slash line of 252, 327, 514. That's an 841 OPS. Had a good stints with the Mets, made some memories there, refused to get traded, or the Mets refused to trade him to the Yankees during that time. Obviously, these last 10 games, Corwin, because you brought up the number and it had me curious, 10 games with the Yankees was a little bit more contentious, especially since he didn't have great first base defense because not a first baseman. So hard to really blame him there. But I think, you put a little bit of time and distance between today and looking back on Jay Bruce's career, or really most people who are looking at Jay Bruce's career today that just aren't shitty Yankees fans, are going to look back at that pretty positively.
Oh yeah, absolutely. My most memorable moment with him was back when I was rooting for those Cleveland Indians. Well, back when they were the Cleveland Indians, going on that 22 game win streak, and he hit a walk off. I guess it would have been a double. I don't know how they would score it, but walk off hit, bringing a run, bottom of the 10th to bring in the winning run, kept the streak alive. And it's not World Series game, it's not a towering home run, but at the end of the day, it's a hit to be a part of one of the greatest streaks in all of sports, and that's special. That's like, no matter what you do the rest of your career, that's a special moment. And that's something you hold on to. You can go back, you can show those kids, go through that streak. You could show them the documentary that'll come from it someday, and you say, "Hey, I kept that alive. I made that happen."
And I very distinctly remember Jay Bruce really being a thorn in the side of Yankee pitching during the ALDS that year against the when he was with Cleveland against the Yankees.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that was and it was very annoying because every time he like did anything, all the commentators would be like, the Yankees tried to trade for him this year at the deadline, and the Mets said no. But I was just like, shut the fuck up. This hurts. Um, Interestingly enough, the Mets actually traded him twice, and I don't remember the first one. So this is just
Wow.
real quick. So he was playing with Cincinnati until 2016. In 2016, Cincinnati traded him to the Mets. And then 2017, he started the season with the Mets and then traded him to Cleveland. And he finished out his season with Cleveland, got re-signed by the Mets in 2018, played 2018 with the Mets. And then in 2019, started the season. Actually, no. He started the season with Seattle and then got traded to Philly. I thought it was he got traded from the Mets to Seattle. But either way, he got traded from the Mets, got traded from the Mets, and then re-signed with the Mets after they traded him away. So he has 3 different Mets stints here. First one, 50 games. Next one, 103 games, and then 94 games. That's pretty fucking funny.
Absolutely. Like just looking over his baseball reference page, which when I Googled Jay Bruce, it was a purple link. And I cannot tell you the last time I looked up Jay Bruce. But 2 top 10 MVP finishes in 2012 and 2013. I don't remember those years. I did not watch baseball then, but goddamn, that's also quite special.
I remember those seasons, but I was very much so not paying attention to anything that was not New York. I was not a baseball fan yet. I was still just a Yankees fan. And fuck, I do not like my recollection of Jay Bruce doesn't extend prior to a Mets uniform. So yeah, it's weird to see, what these types of guys were earlier in their careers when you just like weren't fucking paying attention.
Yeah, very much not when I was paying attention to baseball.
So
It happens.
speaking of baseball,
Baseball.
one of the main things we talk about in this fucking show, there's been another conversation topic amongst Yankees fans, as it is often throughout baseball, but it seems to be especially more so a conversation around Yankees baseball this season than it is for most teams in a given season, and that is lineup construction. And the art science combination thereof of how you actually put together your lineup and what factors weigh into making those decisions. And the reason that this has come up a lot, especially with the Yankees here in the early goings, is that it seems as though every lineup has been different and it has been difficult to extract why. And a lot of the players aren't playing their best right now. So I thought it might be an interesting exercise for us to try to construct our own lineups and with our own lineup rationales for why do what they do.
Why do what they do? As the man with many problem with word, makes sense to me.
Yeah. Yep. Anyway, we're having fun. So, I guess let's start at the top. And
John Carlos Stanton.
Oh, I love that man so much. See, you have a better setup because you can look up and down. I have to go all the way over there to do it.
Oh no, you sit in an actual chair at an actual desk with an actual mic set up, but you have to turn your head sometimes.
It's really hard. You know how many
No.
calories get burned with this motion that could be spent doing other things?
Sir, anytime I have to move any muscle whatsoever, it's like an earthquake going on with my screen.
I feel
I'm
no
glad I did
sympathy.
that. Nearly threw my laptop off the bed and shattered it, but hey, it's worth it for the
You're gonna
day,
do that
you know?
and get some mild but also irreversible issue with your laptop.
Yeah. You mean
Yeah,
like I already have with
I
my
was gonna
cracked
say,
screen, the camera that just fades like it's beaming me up in Star Trek, my
love it.
headset that doesn't work on both ears. This computer's not that old. It has seen some shit, and I don't know why. I haven't mistreated it. I dropped it once, and it caused like 6 problems, and it's just been all downhill from there. Actually, you know what? I didn't drop it. I was up late. I didn't want to carry it over to my desk, so I put it on the floor next to my bed. And when I got up the next morning, I swung my feet over and just stood up on it.
Ooh,
Yeah, it was rough. It was
yeah,
rough.
that's not
That's
good.
not how you treat laptops. It's bad.
No, 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 no. But it was asking for it.
It was. Yeah, piece of
The
shit.
bitch deserved it. All right. So Corwin, let's start with the leadoff spot. So
Sure.
typically, we're using the Yankees as a talking point. We're not literally trying to construct the. I mean, I guess in a sense we are literally trying to construct the Yankees roster, but it's a little bit more basing it around a conversation of where we expect these pieces to lie and where it makes intuitive sense for these pieces to lie. Because it's not as easy as just saying who hits good, put them high. There is a little bit more thought to it than that.
Who would have thought?
Truly, who'd have thunk it? So, Corbin, what's your impression? We talked about leadoff hitters in the past
Mm-hmm.
on the show, but what's your impression of the leadoff spot for you?
So I know historically it's always been guy who has, good speed, good contact, can get on base, can, possibly steal second, get himself in scoring position for, the heart of your order. Um, in my mind, though, the guy I want at the top of the order, batting leadoff, is just whoever I have. Doesn't need to be the guy with the highest on base percentage, but I want, as high as I can get while keeping my, superstar, big power, big boy hitters at 3, 4, 5. So it's always going to differ, per team, but I want guys who can get on base early on and, over the course of a season, get them as many at bats as we can.
And so you're looking at on base percent.
Yeah.
So that brings us to one of the first dichotomies within this choice that has been present amongst a lot of Yankees fans, and that is the choice between DJ LeMahieu and Aaron Hicks.
Mm-hmm.
The idea being DJ throughout his career has been a decent on base percent guy because he has a high batting average. And Aaron Hicks being a decent on base percent guy because he has a good walk rate. Career, just because I really don't feel like parsing this out by year. Career, DJ LeMahieu has an on base percent of 357. Aaron Hicks has an on base percent of 331. So a difference of a little over 20 points. It's there. It's not huge, but it's there. However, if you look at their walk rates, DJ LeMahieu's walk rate career-wise is 7.4. Aaron Hicks's is 12.4. So if that 5 percentage point difference is actually quite large, which also shows conversely in the batting average, DJ's career batting average 305, Aaron Hicks's career batting average 234. Now, who would you put there between these two dudes and why?
I personally would put DJ LeMahieu because to me, the situation of leadoff hitter really, it happens once a game. If all things go well, obviously it can occur multiple times a game where you start off an inning with your leadoff guy, but by all means, that's only certain once. So the rest of the game, if you're in a situation where, you have guys, at the bottom of your order who are on base, possibly in scoring position, I'd rather have the guy come around, start off the order with the ability to hit rather than the ability to just take a walk. Um, but at the end of the day, OBP is OBP. Um, I can understand why you, in some cases, would want a guy who's going to draw walks at the top. You start off a game, a guy's a little not in the groove yet, little all over the place, hasn't been able to rein it in, might be more likely to give up a walk to start off the game than give off a hit. Who knows? That's just all I'm saying is that there's options. I'd rather a guy who can put the bat on ball, get on base, through a solid hit, because in my mind I think he'd be a little more valuable throughout the course of a game rather than Aaron Hicks, who's just going to draw a walk, if anything. But we're boiling it down to just singular stats here.
Right. I think another part of it is One, working the count early and trying to drive up pitch count. And if you have a guy that draws a lot of walks, that guarantees at least 4 pitches to get a walk, because I'd love to see one that required fewer. I guess the intentional walk rule is literally now just a finger point, but still. Whereas a hit could be 1 pitch. So I think that's one side of it there, depending on how much you value that early work you make the pitcher do. The other thing, though, that would put the value on having the hitting guy first, which I believe is the way the Yankees are currently approaching the situation, is imagine you switched Hicks and LeMahieu and had Hicks leading off and DJ at batting third or whatever. Pick a spot, doesn't really matter. Let's say Hicks gets on with his walk. Who cares what Aaron Judge does? Let's say he strikes out. And then DJ hits a ground ball because he's a high contact guy. And then Aaron catches Aaron Hicks in a double play. Because Aaron Hicks gets his on base from non-contact plays a decent percentage of the time, those being walks, which you can't get a double play on. DJ gets his on base percent from hits, which you can get a double play on. So if you put him batting leadoff with nobody else on base, with his higher contact rate and being able to put the ball in play at such a high degree as he does, you are taking away the possibility of getting that double play to start off the game, and instead just using his on base percent. That, I believe, is the rationale that they're using, which is fair.
Makes a ton of sense. I get it.
Yeah, it really does. And obviously you take away the ability for DJ to get those at-bats with runners in scoring position early in the game, in the first inning, or second if he was batting beyond third, which I don't know why he would be. But anyway, obviously you lose out, and we've talked about this before on the show too, you lose out having the chance for DJ to come up, batting third with Hicks and Judge on and running some type of contact play or using his ability to gain contact to get a single and drive in a run from scoring position or something. But I believe that in the Yankees' mind, the negative value of the double play outweighs the positive value of getting a hit with runners in scoring position with whatever frequency those two things would be happening. So I really hate making this decision. You know what? Just to be different from what you're going to do, I'll bet Hicks lead off. Get the higher pitch count. Work the batter a little bit, or work the pitcher a little bit. I'm going to put down. I'm keeping track of our lineups. I'm going to put down DJ at first base for now, since that's what he is playing today, and it's likely what he's going to be playing.
Right. When do we know when Voigt's coming back?
So apparently he started fielding ground balls again today. And he has a chance at hitting with the team on Tuesday, or swinging a bat on Tuesday. So all things lining up very, very well for an early May return, which was the original timetable.
Which I like. That's good.
Yeah. My fantasy team needs it. I have 9 injured players.
I'm right there with you. It's fucking ridiculous.
My bench is 2 people right now.
Yeah.
Like literally 2. Everyone else is hurt.
I'm
getting fucked. Anyway, that's it. This is not our fantasy baseball podcast.
Should be.
Oh, it shouldn't be. I'm not playing well this week. I'm doing very poorly. But anyway. All right. So now comes the 2-hole, and this is an interesting spot. This is where conventionally a lot of teams put their best hitter. The idea being you're going to get a ton of plate appearances over the course of a season because you're batting so early in the lineup that, with a conventional number of outs, you'll still get your plate appearances, typically around at least 4 over the course of a game, whereas you wouldn't be getting quite as many if you were batting 8th or whatever, or even, 4th. That's how the math is eventually going to work itself out. But And I should say, you get the chance of coming up potentially with at least one person on. So if you have your best hitter up who's got a good chance of hitting singles, doubles, home runs, getting yourself, a good round hitter, they'll get the chance to do all those things with a person on base. So again, using the idea of the Yankees, Corwin, who would you put here and why?
So jumping ahead of myself here, I personally prefer to have my top hitter at 3.
Okay.
That's what the Padres have been doing lately with, Tatis. They're having it where they have basically their most consistent guy at number 2 with Jake Cronenworth right now. Um, I have been a big fan of that. So I think in my mind, I'm not, obviously I'm not as well versed on the Yankees as you are. I would argue, hey, let's put our most consistent guy at number 2. Let's give our top guy a higher chance of having at least one guy on, a good chance of getting 2 guys on to really break open the first inning. Uh, in my mind, that's, going to be, I don't think I'd put Judge here. I don't think I'd put Stanton here, obviously. Maybe this is a spot for Glaber. Maybe this is where we put Hicks on and say, hey, he could get on base as well. He's a really solid number 2 OBP guy. Let's get 2 guys on base and let the heart of our order take care of the rest. So in my mind, I'm leaning Hicks. What are your thoughts?
So conventional wisdom here, I think, is where I'm still gonna lie. So the concepts that I laid out for why your average team kind of runs it the way they do, I think I still like and agree with. Um, while you were speaking, I took the time to just find out how much the difference is between batting order and plate appearances, and it ends up being, is that a home run or a foul ball?
Foul ball.
Foul ball. All right. Uh, uh,
Did you see my facial reaction? We're like, I'm gonna look over here now.
no. I just been trying to glance back and forth.
You
For
should just get a
great
mirror, just at an
attentive
angle,
podcast
just
hosts.
to have it
Yeah,
perfectly be like right there.
yeah, one of those ones that they have around like traffic bends and shit.
Or
Yeah,
just mount a TV behind your monitor.
I could. Well,
Just a really tiny one.
I don't know if anybody can tell in the background. There's usually artwork over here, but it's all gone because we're moving out, and I can like feel how empty the space is now.
Mm.
It's weird. So in a couple of weeks, this podcast will have a whole new background, which as of right now, the main background is just darkness. But anyway, so anyway, each batting position or position in the batting order, I guess, is worth about 15 to 18 extra plate appearances over the course of an additional season, is what I am kind of finding. So if you're batting second, chances are over the course of a 162 game season, or, whether you end up playing all those games or not, you'll be getting 15 fewer at bats than your counterpart batting first. You'll be, if they're getting, I don't know, 650 at bats, you might end up getting 635. And if you're batting third, you'll end up getting somewhere around 630 and so on and so forth down the line. How much that matters, I have no fucking clue. Obviously, if you're good, you want to be batting more. How much does 15 plate appearances matter over the course of a 600 plus plate appearance season? I have no fucking clue. That sounds like a lot of math I don't feel like doing.
Yeah. 15% divided by 6. That's not a lot.
Yeah, I just couldn't tell you. At this point, though,
I'll do it just for argument's sake. That is 0.025%.
So here, you know what? Let's run it this way. I have an idea.
Sorry, 0.025. So a quarter of 1% difference in plate appearances.
Let's assume, because we love assuming, that you hit a home run all 15 times. Every every additional plate appearance he would have gotten. So that's 15 more home runs. That's 4,000 points of OPS per home run. All right, hold on. I'm trying to find. Let me. Let's go to Aaron Judge's stat page. Let's see if I can just shoehorn in those additional 15 home runs. And let's use his 2019 stats here. So first, let me do his normal slugging. I'll start with slugging. So he had in that season, fucking God. Oh, let me highlight it so this is easier for myself. Okay,
Here.
so what's up?
If you were going to keep going, I was just going to talk a little bit. But
I'm just gonna.
if you have it, go right ahead.
Yeah, I got it. So he had 18 doubles. So you take 18, multiply it by 2, because a double is 2 bases. That's how your value is going to end up working out. Yeah. Yep. He had 1 triple, so we're just going to add 3. And then he had 27 home runs that season. I'm not going to touch that yet, just so that we can make sure that we're using correct math by, trying to get the right number first. And then let's just add in the difference between all of those hits and his hits total to get his singles. So that's 19, so that's 46, that's 57. So plus 57, and then we'll divide that by his number of at-bats, which was 378, and I got 540. They have 540. Beautiful. Okay.
Aaron
So
has
now
just had 2 grounding errors, quote unquote. I don't think either of them will be maybe one will be counted as an error, but he just missed 2 balls.
Damn. Sorry, Hicksy. I forgive you.
I don't.
He's had a rough start to the season, but he's also been getting hosed. Anyway, so now I'm going to go back to Aaron Judge's 2019 stats, and I'm going to add in 15 more home runs. So now he's going to go from having 27 home runs to having 42. All right. And we're going to add 15 plate appearances to it. So he had 447. So now he has 462. So that's a 571 OPS. That would also be adding 15 more hits to his on base. So hold on real quick. I have Excel up. I just want to write down this number so I don't forget it. Okay. Cool. All right. So now let's just adjust his on base percent. So we'll be adding 15 more hits. So that's 118. Yep, 118
I will
hits.
say I find nothing more riveting than listening to someone do math. Oof, that just gets me going.
I honestly love this type of shit though. Like if I was listening to this, I'd actually
Mm.
be very interested in hearing what happened next. But
And
anyway,
that's why you're our only listener. Yeah.
yes, sir. So divided by 378 plus his number of walks, which is 64,
Ooh,
plus
don't
his number of
forget to
hit
carry
by
that
pitches,
1,
is
baby.
3, plus his sacrifice flies, which was 1. Okay. All right. Okay, so would you like to hear Aaron Judge's new OPS for 2019?
Sure.
Okay, so in 2019, his OPS was 921, and if you gave him 15 more at-bats and he homered in all 15 of them, his OPS would rise to 986. So he would tack on 65 additional points of OPS, assuming he came up in an additional 15 at-bats and homered in every single one of them.
Okay.
So we're going to call that basically the maximum value add of
Sure.
those 15 plate appearances. The maximum value add is somewhere around 65 points to your OPS, which that's not nothing.
Right. Because you're hitting 15 15 home runs.
Oh yeah, I'm totally with you. I'm totally with you. It's unrealistic as shit. Chances are, all right. So let's see. What was Aaron? Do I have Aaron Judge's home run rate?
Uh,
Hold on.
I don't
Let's make
think
it
we should sit
complicated.
here and just go through and just be like, all right, let's see what happened if he hit 10 home runs in 15 plate appearances or
Well, no.
5 home runs in plate appearances.
We don't even need to do that. We don't even need to do all that. We just say, you know what, it's not immediately obvious where it is, and I really don't feel like searching too hard for it.
And also, why didn't we do that in the first place?
Because we didn't know we'd be going down this road. Oh no. Because I wanted to know was what because if he's hitting home run at I don't know, 10% of his plate appearances ended a home run, which that's way too high. Actually, I can do now that I said it out loud, I can do this number very, very easily by just taking the number of home runs he hit and dividing by his plate appearances. I don't know why I didn't just do that. Oh God, I hate myself. So we'll do with his at bats.
So do we.
Fuck you. Now I'll do plate appearances because that's the goal here. So 6%. So if he had 15 extra plate appearances, he'd hit one additional home run.
What? He wouldn't hit 15? What?
No, he would not. But if you took that 65 additional points of whatever of OPS and then and then divided it by 1/15. Oh, it doesn't matter. Oh, it really doesn't matter. No, if you multiply it by 1/15, you get so we just like 8 points on his OPS. That's how I'm going to ration it out or reason it out. Oh God, I've lost myself now. So anyway, we're still talking about the number 2 spot, if you can believe it. I'd still.
So in my mind, what I was going to say earlier is when you're looking at it from that perspective and you're looking at, where Aaron Hicks can be most valuable and where his walking ability, where his on base percentage can be most valuable, is that more valuable to have him on base in front of Aaron Judge, in front of Gleyber Torres, in front of Giancarlo Stanton, or in front of Clint Frazier, Rougned Odor, Gary Sanchez, Kyle Higa, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. So is it more valuable to have him in front of guys who can drive him in or get a walk in front of the 8-9 hitter who probably aren't going to be doing much with their plate appearances versus having him on base when you have your power guys up? So that's what, in my mind, why I want to have those on base guys early before you get the heart of your order, rather than trying to squeeze 15 more plate appearances, 30 plate appearances out of, Stanton, Judge, Gary, Gleyber, whoever you want to put there. I think that would more maximize that walkability, that on base ability, comparatively.
So I think that the concept that the Yankees are running with here is they have it structured where it's like leadoff guy, 2-hitter, leadoff guy, 2-hitter. Is what I think they're kind of going for, where you have a guy that gets on base a lot, then you got a guy behind him that can do damage, and then you have a guy that gets on base a lot, and then you got a guy behind him that can do damage, and then the lineup is how it looks like it's structured in my mind. Right. Which, I get your point. And that's part of, why we're kind of talking about it, because it's an interesting way to run it. And I think I've decided I would do something a little bit different. I think I would put Giancarlo Stanton too.
Okay.
And I think I would do it. Oh, you know what though? Actually, I really see why they did Aaron Judge. All right. I'm actually going to keep Judge because at first I was my idea before I pulled up their Fangraphs pages and actually looked at them was, in my mind, Giancarlo Stanton strikes out more than Aaron Judge on a rate basis. Not that it matters, but if we're talking about minimizing the amount of damage that can be done in terms of negative consequences from balls in play, you'd want a more 3 true outcomes guy. But that actually is Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge strikes out at a higher rate than Giancarlo Stanton. Aaron Judge 31.2 to Giancarlo Stanton's 28.1. And Aaron Judge walks more than Giancarlo Stanton, 15.4% of the time versus Giancarlo Stanton's 11.6% of the time. So Aaron Judge actually is the better 3 true outcomes guy, which means there is a better chance that whatever happens to Aaron Judge won't impact the runner on first, assuming you got that. Which, in a negative way, I should say, which is good, because if he's going to make an out, there's a 30% chance. Well, I guess there's a higher than 30% chance, since the percentage is based off of his at-bats, but regardless, there is a high percentage chance that his outs are going to be generated from strikeouts instead of ground balls or fly balls that might somehow end up resulting in a weird double play. So actually, I do get that. So I'm going to leave Judge there at 2. Who are you locking in for your?
I'm locking in Hicks for mine.
Okay. All right, so now let's talk about the 3-hole. And this has been a hotly contested position in the Yankees lineup because they have been batting Aaron Hicks here. And Yankees fans are confused as to why. I think, based on sheer guessing, is that the reason that they have him there is what I just kind of described. It pertains to what the Aaron Judge phenomenon a little bit as well, in that Hicks has a high walk rate, which means that if there is someone on base, there is a lower percentage chance based on his odds of hitting the 3 true outcomes that he ends up doing too much damage to that guy. He's got a 12.4% walk rate and a 21% strikeout rate. So there is, a 33% chance that he doesn't hit the ball into play, which is fine. I don't really know how I would want to quantify this position, though, in my mind. I want to hear your rationale. Who would you put here and why?
I want my best hitter at 3. So, for me, this is going to be, in all likelihood, Aaron Judge, for the reasons you just said previously, for what you were thinking for 2. Lower strikeout rate, higher walk rate. Yeah, he doesn't have quite the same, contact to power that Stanton does. But at the same time, the way I'm going to have it is I'm going to have 3 and 4 as my top 2 guys for, pure hitting and hitting with power, I should say. So I'm going to have Judge and then Stanton there rather than Stanton before Judge as my 3-4. And just, all right, if Judge walks, there you go. He's on base. You got 3 guys who can get on base right there in front of you. I'm just trying to maximize the amount of damage that those power hitters can do. So I'm putting Judge there at 3.
So, as much as I get what the Yankees are going for, I think I'm going to put Stanton here. And I think part of the reason that they have Hicks there in their mind, or typically what they've been doing, and I think that's what they did with this game too. I think Hicks was the 3 hitter in this game too. Is here's 3 dudes in a row that can walk very effectively, and so you don't want to pitch around them too much. Mm-hmm. The hard part for that, though, is that Hicks isn't a huge power hitter and just doesn't have the same odds of doing the same types of damage that Stanton and Judge do. And there's going to be some Yankees fans that hear that love Aaron Hicks the way I love Aaron Hicks. And they're going to say, what are you talking about? Aaron Hicks can absolutely hit home runs. Absolutely, Aaron Hicks can hit home runs. Absolutely can.
So can Dee Gordon.
But the type of power that Aaron Hicks can generate is not exactly comparable to the type of power that Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton can generate. And I think with having those two guys be back to back, they can actually layer as a little bit of protection for each other. This is part of the Miguel Cabrera phenomenon, which is where he has derided Detroit in the past couple of seasons himself, saying that he has no protection in the lineup, and pitchers can either pitch around him and just kind of give him nothing to hit, or challenge him in a little bit of ways, because even if he does get on base in some lesser type of fashion, then there's no one behind him that they really have to care about, which he's right about, or has been up until the past couple seasons. Akil Baddoo. But anyway, I think I'd actually put Giancarlo Stanton here, because if we're going to say that Aaron Judge has a low % chance of fucking with the guy at first, assuming our leadoff man got on, why not go with the guy right after him that could do a lot of the same things Judge could do? You know, I get the idea that there's still the double play possibility that would take the runner on first out. But at the same time, I think by offering Judge some protection in the lineup and by taking a bit of a risk on guys who can generate such hard contact, I understand the downside there, in that you might be risking letting the 4-hitter come up a little bit more frequently than he might otherwise do so. But I think by giving the opportunity for power to be present in a impactful way, there's just a benefit that outweighs the cost there, in my mind anyway. So I'd actually put Stanton here. But I think we're going for similar things, you and I, with this one.
Right. So your lineup so far?
All right. So for you, it's DJ LeMahieu leading off, playing first, Hicks batting second in center, and then Judge batting third and right. I have Hicks leading off in center, Judge batting second in right, and Stanton batting third and DHing.
Okay.
For the defensive positioning, Corwin and I are just using the defensive positioning that these players have most commonly. I'm only keeping track of it to make sure that we don't weirdly double down on the positional group. I'm not sure how we would, but I just wanted to make sure we didn't.
I mean, I think we're going to have fairly similar, because it's not when healthy, because I don't think you're including Voit in this. I'm not thinking of Voit when doing this.
Yeah.
So I think we're just going to stick with the lineup that we got essentially today.
All right. So then, that being said, we got the 4 spot here. This is traditionally the big boy power hitter spot. The idea, I think, likely being from old school baseball, hey, if everybody got on, this motherfucker could hit a grand slam. Which, boy, is that optimistic. But anyway, what's your impression of the 4-hole and who you putting here?
Again, it's a power guy, but I'm not going for grand slams. I mean, I'm a Padres fan, so obviously I want to see Slam Diego appear in every game. But in my mind, it's a guy who can do serious damage with the bat and who can also hit at a very high level regardless, not selling out for power kind of guy. I mean, I've already said I'm going to have Stanton here. Part of that is to, like you said, protection for Judge, having both of these guys back to back. If you get one of the 3 guys in front of him on base, okay, you have a base runner for him to utilize his power, and at the end of the day, if all 3 guys get out in front of him, leading off the next inning with a Giancarlo Stanton, he's not hurting you there. He's still going to be able to hit dangerously and drive in runs with the way you want a Giancarlo Stanton to do. So I'm having Stanton here at 4.
I'm with you. That is the traditional role for the 4-hole.
Mm-hmm.
I have constructed my lineup with guys who have a lot of power and on base ability in the first 3 spots here. So this is where I'm going to put DJ LeMahieu, my ball in play guy, because the idea here being that, these are 3 guys who all have an over 30% chance of getting on base with their over 300 batting or on base percentages. And assuming you get even one of them on, I want the guy who's got a good odd of getting the hit for the RBI. understand that there is certainly some high level math that we don't have access to nor feel like doing, um, assuming we have the capability.
Mm-hmm.
That might show how we are wrong for taking maybe a bit, or at least I am wrong for taking a bit for granted how severe the negative consequences of any potential double play situation may be. However, we're seeing how the current Yankees roster is handling the double play situation, and it is butt. So, um, as much as RBIs is a made up stat that nobody should care about, at the same time, having the ability
Agreed.
to actually drive in runs with a hit is just more likely than driving in runs through a walk. I mean, one requires a guy on second base and nobody else being on base. One requires the bases to be full. So I want the guy who's likely, based on batting average, to get a hit. And I think that's going to be DJ. I want traffic on the bases and a guy who can actually move him around a little bit here. Is the rationale great? Nope. But that's what I'm going with.
Absolutely.
So I'm putting DJ here at the 4-hole.
Cool.
So that brings us to 5. So 4, 5, 6 is what is often considered the heart of the order. So we're now entering the guys who are not your best hitters, but these are guys you still kind of need to rely on in order to keep the game moving along for your offense.
Momentum.
Right. These can't be automatic outs, even if they're not your best and brightest. Not to make them sound dumb, but anyway. So Corwin, what's your impression of 5 and who you slotting in?
It really is just like you said. I want to have basically the top of the order 1 and 2. I want to have high on base percentage. The rest of the way is pretty much OPS working its way down. Guys who can get on base, who can hit with power, just the best hitters as high as I can, and then working my way down till 7, 8, 9, which in all honesty are guys I really don't have a whole lot of expectations on or with, unless it's an incredibly deep lineup. So for number 5 for me, I want to have Gleyber Torres here. I want a guy who has a fairly good on base percentage. I think his career is like 340. I just looked it up. Yeah, 340 career on base percentage, 339 this year. He also has a career career 484 OPS or slugging, I should say. That's a guy I want there. At this point, it's for me between Gary and Gleyber. I want Gleyber leading ahead of Gary. I want him to get on base. I want him to also be able to hit with power. So I'm going to have Gleyber here. And spoiler alert, Gary's going to be not far behind.
Yeah, so I think you've got to assume at this point that you are in a new inning. And that's right. Part of how you're going to, you were a fool if you were going to construct a lineup assuming all 9 people hit every inning. So at some point we have entered a new inning. And I think to that effect, going with on base percent here at 5 is a pretty reasonable assumption, because if you assume you went 1, 2, 3 in the first, that means your second inning is going to be 4, 5, 6. This guy's batting second. If you assume that you only made it 4 batters through in the original, in the first inning, that means that this guy's batting first. He's leading off. And if you manage to get 3 guys on, that means that this guy's coming up in the first to bat. So no matter which way you shake it, this spot's important because he's either one of your last best chances in the first inning, or he's a guy that you need to actually generate something to happen here for you in the second inning, which is still a really valuable inning because you still need to make work happen for the pitcher to give the second time through the order guys a chance at doing a little bit more damage as the pitcher gets more and more into their outing. So I think
I will say I don't think we should ever focus that much on innings and who starts what inning, the rotation through the inning or the lineup through each inning, because you can assume you go 1, 2, 3. You can assume you get a hit or 2. You can assume this, that, and 10 other things. I mean, it's baseball. At the end of the day, this is so chaotic. How consistent is it that you see lineups go through their order in order for each inning? It's so all over the place. Anything can happen. I don't think we should be putting a tremendous amount of weight, much if any, on okay, let's plan this, like he's going to be the second guy up in the second inning or things like that, because you'll never know. So I think, yes, you can never assume you're going to have 9 guys go through an inning. That never happens. It does, but at such a small amount that it's not a meaningful statistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said my piece. Made my fuck. I said what I had to say. I made
I
my
know what you
piece.
mean.
I
Yeah.
said my piece. There we go.
My point with this was that no matter which situation you do assume, 5 is an important slot.
Correct.
Right. Actually, and we'll touch a little bit on what you said when we get to 8 and 9 and how you feel about those 2 spots, but we'll get there. So regardless, 5 should still be a very good hitter for you. For one, it's just good to have the type of depth where you're not 5 guys in your batting order and saying, oof, this guy sucks. But again, this is a person who's going to come up in meaningful at-bats pretty regularly. And to that effect, I'd probably also put Gleyber Torres here for the exact reasons you said. This is a guy that has a career 340 batting average on base percentage, which is the highest of what we have remaining for the this current iteration of the Yankees team. In addition, he's got a career 120 WRC plus since I'm here on Fangraphs now. And while there are other players in the Yankees that have good on base percentages, their WRC pluses might end up suffering because of the types of hitter that they are. So I too am going to stick Gleyber Torres here, playing shortstop.
I don't want him there, but he's there.
It's what they got. It is what they got. All right, so that brings around the 6 hole. This is the last position in what is considered the heart of the order. So Corwin, I think you've already tipped your hand a little bit here, but tell me about the 6 hole for you.
Yeah, I've been tipping my pitches the whole podcast. I'm putting Gary here. He's the last, I want to say, dangerous guy in the Yankees lineup right now. I mean, I know Clint Frazier's there, but I think he's still too young, still too early in his development to really consider him a meaningful, heavy hitter kind of guy. Gary with, Judge, Stanton, Glaber all ahead of him. He's a guy who can absolutely hit for power. We've all seen it. Has a fairly good on base percentage, career like 322. It's an easy spot to slide him in there.
Yeah, I'm gonna go much the same. I was waffling between Gary or Gio because so far in the early goings of, well, I guess it's not even the early goings anymore. So far in Gio Urshela's Yankees career, he's been a high average hitter, which is odd because he just hasn't been elsewhere. But in his first season with the Yankees, he hit 314. In 2020, he hit 298. And in 2021 so far, he hasn't been that great. Well, that doesn't matter. Now, while that is only batting average, looking over at his WRC plus, he's had a 132 and a 133 in his first 2 full, with little air quotes, seasons with the Yankees, and that's great. So he gets on base with the hit, and he does enough damage with those hits and with his slight ability to walk. He has a career 6.2 walk percent, but last season he showed a lot of promise walking 10.3% of the time. So it depends on how much you believe in a potential Gio Urshela walk surge. But anyway, I'm tempted to actually put him here, but I also don't like the idea of Gary being so far back because his power, under the assumption that he can actually get into the batter's box with players on base, I think is a nice looking threat. And it might actually be good having somebody who has shown as much flash as Gio has been batting behind him for a little bit of protection there. So I think I'm also going to go Sanchez here.
Mm-hmm.
Which then brings us to the 7 hole. So now we're in the bottom of the order. This is like, if you watch hockey, this is your 4th line.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you watch football, this is your 2nd stringers. But guys you rely on, this is your backup left tackle. You need that guy. You don't necessarily expect too much from that guy, but you need that guy. Or your backup
This is your
right tackle.
backup running back. This is your number 3 wide receiver, your number 2 tight end, guys who play meaningful snaps to some extent, but at no point you're going to say, hey, the game's in your hands.
Right. I think our 4th line comparison is the most appropriate, just because that's a guy you expect to go out there and not fuck it up. You don't need them to go out there and score you a goal, necessarily, but you really just need them to not be so uncompetitive. Yeah, that the other team just spends the entire period or entire shift in your end.
Right. So, they're the checking line. They're their, defense. They're their, physicality. They're there to fucking
not fuck it up
because they need to fill the lines. Yep.
And that's what this bottom of your order is for. Obviously, do you want them to be productive? Yeah, no shit. You want everybody on your team to hit a home run every single at bat. We get it. Obviously, you also have to though build in expectations for what these players actually can produce. So,
no, I want to see a triple every at bat.
Corwin wants a triple every at bat. That is fair. So that being said, let's talk about the bottom 3 positions here now. Corwin, the 7 spot, who do you got?
At this point, I mean, we have the same 3 guys left. We got Gio Urshela, we got Clint Frazier, and we have
Rougned Odor,
that bearded guy who no longer has a beard. It's obviously not going to be Odor, so it's Gio and it's Clint. And it's, okay, do you want to put Gio and his good batting average after Gary? Do you want to put Clint and his power behind Gary? And like, who do you want protecting who? So in my mind, if you put Clint after Gary, you would protect him with Gio, but at the same time, you're kind of wasting Gio a little bit. Whereas, okay, you can put Gio in front of Clint. You could hopefully get a guy on base with Clint coming up. You could have Gary there. You could have Glaber on. Doesn't matter. Like we talked about it. Who knows how it's going to roll. I'm leaning having Gio first and, leaving Clint there a little bit more open in the 8 hole rather than having Gio kind of wasted as just protection for Clint Frazier. So I'm going to put Gio there at number 7.
I am going to save us a little bit of conversation and say that I'm doing the same.
Yep.
Okay. So that's going to bring us to the 8 and 9 spots. Now, there are 2 different rationales for what happens in the 8 and the 9 spot. And it just depends on how much you give a shit about this philosophy. All right. So the idea number 1, 8 is the better hitter, 9 is the worst hitter. End of story.
You want 8 to have more plate appearances than 9, and you're going to give the better hitter more plate appearances than the worst one.
Right. The other idea is that you treat 9 as the second leadoff hitter, which is to say, basically, it's a stupid saying because it's not really what it should mean, but basically what the idea is that I want a better odd of, as we're going through the game, the 9 hitter being on base so that when the 1 hitter comes up, he has somebody that he can potentially drive in. Whereas I'd have so I'd put my better hitter at 9 because then, depending on how the innings shake out, with the outs or whatever, I just got a good shot of having those 2 hitters back to back so that the inning can't end with, the the better hitter getting on, and then the true non-hitter getting an out, and now the leadoff hitter is just leading off with empty bases or some shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
So where do you stand in that argument, and then therefore who would you put here?
There are certain teams with certain lineups where I can understand the rationale of wanting, a guy at 9 who would act as a second leadoff hitter who, where if you don't have a black hole named Rougned Odor on your team, you could move guys around and move around their skill sets so that you could have a high, OBP guy at number 9. But seeing as Odor is just fucking utter garbage, Clint Frazier not being so, I'd kind of want him to follow up the Gary, follow up Gio Urshela, have a much higher chance of himself doing something meaningful with his bat rather than just hoping he can get on base so that, in my case, DJ LeMahieu or Aaron Hicks can do something there. So I'm putting Clint at 8. I want him to get more at bats. I want him to get the ability to do damage with his bat rather than shoving Odor there, hoping he can just stay alive, and then letting Clint be the number 2 leadoff.
Yeah, I am with you. So for 5 through 9, we've had the exact same lineup, but I'm with you here on it. The argument for the second leadoff hitter is most commonly heard in my what's the word I'm looking for? There's like a word for like when you're speaking from experience and not from data. You know what I'm talking about? Fuck, it is right on the tip of my goddamn tongue.
Does it start with a T?
I have no idea.
Like your own personal testimony?
Yeah, it's not that. Oh, God.
How does it feel, Josh? Welcome
Awful.
to the club.
This happens every day. Yeah. But anyway, I mostly hear it, I think, as a conversation around National League teams and where do you put the pitcher. It's not uncommon to see pitchers slotted into the 8 hole, even though they are invariably worse than literally whoever is batting 9th. And that is the basic idea here, is that we don't want, for some reason, the pitcher to be leading off an inning. And there's a couple of reasons why you might not want the pitcher leading off an inning. Because if you have your starter there and but we need runs, do you leave him in? If your starter is there and you want to take him out, do you let him bat? He's at 100 pitches, but do we pinch hit now or whatever? I don't know. I don't really pay attention to National League roster situations that much. I don't give a shit. But that's where you end up hearing it a lot. So I don't think it applies fucking most of the time. So I'm going to do what you're going to do by putting Rugi at 9th and Frazier at 8th, because I'd rather assume that whoever's coming up at 8 had someone between 6 through 7 on base for them. Like, think about the leverage of the situation. Would you rather be banking on somebody being on base for 8th and you have a potential to drive in a run? Or would you rather be banking on one in your lineup coming up with a guy on maybe, and then, assuming that 8's just going to fuck it up and let that shit end or whatever. No, like we had good hitters 5 through 7. Like, let's assume they're going to do something somewhere along the line and give 8 a chance to actually have an accomplishment rather than just be fodder for 1 and 2 or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go with what you're going with. So that means that our lineups, I'll start with you, is DJ leading off, playing first, Hicks at batting second, playing center, Judge in right, batting third, Stanton DHing, batting fourth, Torres at short, batting fifth, Sanchez catching and batting sixth, Urshela batting seventh, playing third, Frazier playing left, batting eighth, and then batting ninth at second base, Rougned Odor. Now there's one other. Oh, sorry. And then mine. Sorry. Mine is Hicks in center leading off, Judge batting second, playing right, Stanton DHing, batting third, Batting fourth is DJ, playing first. Torres at short, he'll bat fifth. Sanchez catching, batting sixth. Batting seventh is Gio Urshela at third. In left field is Clint Frazier batting eighth, and then batting ninth, Rougned Odor playing second base. So first off, Corwin, what do you think of these two lineups we got here?
Fairly similar. I mean, like you said, 5 through 9 is the same lineup. 1 through 4, different approaches, but at the same time, we have Judge right before Stanton. We have LeMahieu right, to an extent before Hicks. It's just, do we want Hicks before the two tower? Ooh, before Judge and Stanton, or after Judge and Stanton? That's the only difference. So at the end of the day, I think they accomplish very similar things, with you wanting to get guys on base a little more spread out, and I kind of want to front load those OBP guys. So at the end of the day, I think if we ran a 100 and actually this might be something that we could do. We could run a simulation for these lineups and see which produces more runs at the end of the year
Yeah,
through
we just need
162 games.
Out of the park 21.
You talk for a minute. I'm going to do some research here.
Okay. Because that is basically what that game is like all about. The only other thing that Corwin and I haven't talked about is the right-left situation here. Now, the Yankees as a team are very righty-heavy. Their only left-handed or switch-hitting bats are Aaron Hicks, who is a switch hitter, Rougned Odor, who bats left, and Brett Gardner, who bats left. As it stands right now, Jay Bruce is still listed in the depth chart because he has not yet retired. He's retiring after this game. After he does, he'll be replaced by one of Tyler Wade or Mike Ford, who are both lefties, and then Mike Tauchman is also on the bench, who's a lefty. But there's only two of those guys are in the starting lineup on a consistent basis. And there's been a question over this season, especially because of part of this has been around the roster construction, because Jay Bruce was very frequently finding himself batting like sixth, and it was weird. And then Aaron Hicks batting third. Part of that conversation was we have to split up the righties, and part of Bruce batting sixth was we got to split up the righties. And it's something I just don't care about. And, I'm sure, again, that there's a science there, or there's a math there that works out. But, and I mentioned this as a passing remark previously in a different episode, I should say. If you're going to have the free agent and trade strategy that handedness doesn't matter, the results matter. Contact rate matters, hard hit rate matters, launch angle matters, sprint speed, whatever, regardless of handedness, then you should not care what your handedness is in the lineup. Because in theory, if you spend all of your time acquiring these dudes because of their ability to hit in a vacuum, then why all of a sudden do we care about how they hit in regards to handedness when it's time to actually situate them within a lineup? I don't get that. And the thing is, I so much so agree with the trade and free agent strategy that the Yankees have employed, which is fuck the handedness, give me guys who hit monster dongs, that to worry about how they're going to land in the lineup in terms of the righty-lefty split, who fucking gives a shit? To some small extent, I get it. If it's a difference between one or two spots in the lineup, if we had a good lefty that could bat third and no one would complain about it, and then you were playing a lefty pitcher and you decided to swap Stanton for that lefty just for the game, okay, cool. Who gives a shit? But in a grander sense, I just don't get the idea of those two different strategies, which seem so directly opposed to each other, supposing to fit like a glove. And I think that's what's ending up with the Yankees making some weird decisions, like clinging to Tyler Wade, acquiring Jay Bruce, acquiring Rougned Odor, giving Derek Dietrich a try, because these aren't guys that they've targeted necessarily. These are guys that have left-handed swings that they made themselves available to go get because they decided that they needed a left-handed swing, kind of like post fact. And I clearly there's something there that I don't offhand see, because of course there is. Like, we don't have access to all the stats and information and data that the Yankees and other big teams do. And I'm not necessarily saying that they're wrong for doing it the way that they're doing it, but the position that I have based on the information I have available to me, I would have the opposite opinion. But again, I'm an uninformed jackass. Who the fuck knows? Corwin, how's your research going?
I have found a site that will do this for us for free. We will have to input names,
Credit
OBP, and
cards.
slugging by hand. Do you want to take like a 2-minute break? Just take a timeout here, input all of this, and then just cut it out and come back in and talk about it?
Let's do it.
Cool.
All right, we're back. I've never paused in Zoom before. I also kind of didn't realize I could do it until Corwin asked if we could pause, and I was like, oh shit. So sorry, but anyway, we'll see how that turns out. So we ran the numbers using some site that Corwin found, and we're
Baseball musings.
Baseball musings, just so that we could do this during the show and see how it goes. So we already read out the two lineups, and it was a little bit more recently than Corwin and I feel as though it was, because we had to do this. But anyway, oh nice, Yankees scored. Corwin,
Yes.
this site has it broken down by runs per game for your given lineup. What is your lineup's runs per game?
So my lineup of LeMahieu, Hicks, Judge, Stanton, Torres, Sanchez, Urshela, Frazier, and Odor would result in a runs per game above, or a runs per game of 5.330.
Okay, and my lineup would result in a runs per game. I'll say it again since you said yours. Hicks, Judge, Stanton, LeMahieu, Torres, Sanchez, and Urshela, Frazier, Odor is a 53.01 runs per game. Now, this also gives best and worst lineups based on the above statistics.
Mm-hmm.
And the best lineup that this gives, now granted, we only put in on base and slugging. That's the only two pieces of information this thing uses. And based on those two statistics, it has chosen a best lineup of DJ LeMahieu.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Aaron Judge. Makes sense. Gio Urshela in 3. Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. Giancarlo Stanton at 4. So far, 3 out of 4 of those first 4 spots is the Yankees' current lineup, basically. Number 5 is Gleyber Torres. Still makes sense. Gary Sanchez batting 6th. Frazier batting 7th. Odor batting 8th. And then Hicks batting 9th. So this model is clearly using the second leadoff hitter phenomenon here.
Right.
Because does it make no sense to do that otherwise. But yeah, that is quite a different look than what the Yankees are currently going with. And granted, this only includes literally 2 statistics. But that is quite an interesting look.
Yeah. Listen, like, however they calculate this, whatever algorithm they use, I'm sure it has its own quirks and things that it favors. Urshela and Hicks being essentially not even switched, but just back and forth like that. Those are really the only 2 that stick out. Everything else is very much, like we said, makes sense. It's something that wouldn't surprise either of us. Just, I want to know what the reasoning was behind having Urshela so high, and to an extent why you would want to have Hicks basically closing out the order.
I would like to read you one of their best lineups that I think would make every Yankees fan mad. You want to hear it?
Mm-hmm.
So they have it as being this is for a 5.452 runs per game, which is phenomenal. Aaron Judge leading off, Giancarlo Stanton batting second, Aaron Hicks batting third, Gary Sanchez batting fourth, Torres sixth, Frazier seventh, Urshela eighth, Odor. Oh, sorry, I missed a spot somewhere. This. Sorry, Sanchez fourth, Torres fifth, Frazier sixth, Urshela seventh, Odor eighth, LeMahieu ninth. So that's Judge leading off. That's Hicks in the 2-hole. Sanchez batting fourth. Sorry, 3-hole. Sanchez batting fourth. LeMahieu batting ninth. Oh man, Frazier batting ahead of Urshela. There's a whole bunch of weird shit in here.
Now, just out of curiosity, can you give me Luke Voigt's statistics for on-base percentage and slugging, just so we could see the difference when he gets healthy and they move this lineup around?
Sure thing. So in that situation, I think it would be pretty easy to assume that Rougned Odor would drop off and you'd slot DJ back over at second to accommodate Voigt going back to first. So that means we can effectively, which I'm sure is what you're going to do, but that means we can effectively get rid of Rougned Odor from this lineup entirely and add in Luke Voigt, whose career on-base percent is .363, and his career slugging percent is .527. As Corwin crunches the numbers.
Yes. Now, I will say in this scenario, I'd probably keep the back end roughly the same and probably slide in Voigt somewhere around 5 or 6, sliding, the rest of those guys down. But because I don't want to have to redo everything, I'm putting him in the 9-hole, so I'm not going to worry about where this ends up. Having him in the 9-hole bumps this up to a 5.566, so that's already a huge jump. Their number one lineup would be Judge, Voigt at 2, LeMahieu, Stanton, Torres, Sanchez, Frazier, Urshela, Hicks. Just looking at this here, the one that would probably make the most sense for both Yankees fans, the both of us, would be their number 3 with LeMahieu, Judge, Torres, Stanton, Voigt, Sanchez, Frazier, Urshela, Hicks. By all means, that sounds like a fairly normal lineup to you. That's, you could picture any of that. That would be a 5.688 runs per game average, which is a pretty huge jump. That's a 350 jump from where we were with Odor in the lineup.
I do have to say, though, I'm highly skeptical because the worst lineup you can run out, they say, still garners you 5.071 runs per game. And it's like,
with
get
Odor in the lineup, not Voigt.
Yes, with Odor batting leadoff, which love it. And I get that, lineup orientation can only add so much, and I'm sure this is kind of what that is showing. At the same time, that's still really high. And with so many plate appearances lost to this lineup that they're showing that has Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge batting 9th and 8th respectively, which would be murder. Murder. I have to imagine that it's more impactful than 0.4 runs per game. 0.39.
0.4.
Yeah, it's what the difference between the worst lineup.
Oh, not
5071.
My bad.
Yeah, right. Not 0.04.
Okay. At the end of the day, I feel like I would use this more as a comparative tool rather than, all right, basing how many runs the Yankees should be scoring every kind of game, and rather be like, all right, where are we maximizing, run scoring potential, things like that. And unless we don't know anything behind this tool, it's a free tool that we found Googling in 15 seconds. At the end of the day, it is what it is. I'm sure we'll play around with things like this in the future because, boy, this was a lot of fun for the 5 minutes that we've been doing this. But yeah, this is just cool to see.
It really is. It is interesting to see how lineup construction can affect the outcome, even if it is a tool that we're not super hardcore trusting.
Absolutely.
I dig it. I dig it. So we're gonna do a little bit of draft stuff today, but this ended up taking a lot of time, and now I don't think we're gonna do that. So we'll just save that for Thursday.
I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, that's not a big deal. This was fun. Do you have anything else to say before we skedaddle out of here?
Yankees figure out a way to get Rougned Odor off your team.
Trade for Trevor Story. Please. Please. See how much money they'll give you to take him. I mean, they gave $50 million for Nolan Arenado. Maybe they'll give us $30 million to take Trevor.
You're not wrong.
I mean, if they're giving out good players and cash, let's get in on that. Let's stand in the free money line.
Absolutely.
They're handing out money at the money store today. Let's go get some money. Come on. Anyway, yeah, right on, man. Well, then if you ain't got nothing else to say, then you can follow the show on Twitter at JuicingPod. You can follow Corwin on Twitter at Corwin Heller. And you can follow me on Twitter at Joshua D. Tracy. If you want to send us emails, you can do so at juicingthenumbers@gmail.com. And until Thursday, when we talk about some draft shit, y'all have a good one.
Bye.